I'm Cindy.
Hi, and I'm Geri. Do you want to start or you want me to start?
You start.
Okay. Well, we came out here in 1970. You can tell I came from Brooklyn.
I was wondering what the accent was. Yes, yes.
It is, you can take the girl out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the girl.
That's right. That's what they say.
I met my husband when we were 15 years old. He was the boy next door.
Literally?
Yes. And he came out of the car and he had dimples like you could, and the Elvis Presley. Gorgeous. I mean, I could just eat him up. I figured, well, I got to go meet him. So I walked up the steps, and it was a summer, and I knocked on the screen, and my mother-in-law said, yeah, can I help you? I says, oh, and my sister says, oh, that's my sister. She said, oh, come on in. And we were sitting at the table, Geri and I, and my sister and my mother-in-law, and we just kept staring at each other. And then finally, my mother-in-law said, why don't you guys sit outside on the porch? You're not really interested in what we have to say. And from there, it went. I mean, it just blossomed and blossomed. We got married when I was 19.
Oh, wow.
We celebrated our 25th. We celebrated our 50th. Unfortunately, in 2019, Geri had passed away. He had lung cancer. And they had already given him a transplant. And the doctor told him that he would live for if you get your transplant, you'll live 5 more years. Well, unfortunately, he lived 11 months, and it was just horrendous. It was horrible. And like I said, we were married, when he passed away, we were married 58 and a half years. It's funny, I was so close with my father and my mother, especially my mother. I mean, I was the baby. And when she passed away, all I can think is, I still love God. Because, you know what? He took away my mother, but he brought me Geri.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what I live with. Yeah, but tell me about you.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. Mm-hmm. I always loved the news. Even when I was in elementary school, I was fascinated by sort of what was going on in the world around us, and I used to watch the news as a child. And so I knew I wanted to get into journalism, and I sort of fell in love with this idea of covering politics. So after graduation, I moved to DC, and back then there was no cell phones, no internet. I would literally knock on the doors of these news bureaus in Washington and see if they were hiring. Eventually, I got a job at CNN, so I moved to New York by myself. In my early 20s, I lived on the Upper West Side in a studio apartment. I don't cook, so those apartments are so small. I put my shoes in the oven. That was my storage. I didn't need the oven, and I needed a place for my shoes. I was a booker. I booked guests for the live show every week, newsmakers, celebrities, musicians, athletes, and the whole time I kept looking at what Oprah Winfrey was doing on television. And I was in news, and it was exhausting and it was exhilarating, but I felt like she was changing people's lives for the better. And then a few years later, I knew some people that worked at the show, and I submitted my resume and I got an interview, and I've been working for her for 24 years.
Wow.
So, I think there's a couple of things that sort of resonate. I mean, the first is that I lost my dad when I was very little, and my mom grew up in the 50s, and she did have a college degree, but she was a teacher for fun or for something to do, but really she was raising her children, and so I learned very young that things happen that are unexpected, and you have to pivot. And I think I was being the oldest of 3 kids. I was 9, and my brother was 7, and my sister had just turned 6, and here's my mom widowed at 36 years old. And that early loss taught me, number 1, not to take people for granted, ever. And number 2, that I was going to have to figure out on my own how to take care of myself. And those are 2 lessons you don't really want to learn when you're that age. I always say, I don't have any hobbies. I'm not a good artist. I'm not good at music. I'm not good at sports. I'm not really good at anything except making friends. I was really good at making friends. And so I think I used that, not knowing that that was really a skill set. That just was kind of who
You
I
are.
was.
Cindy, how do you deal with death? With, to comfort yourself?
I've had a lot of loss in the last several years. And Temple Isaiah for me has been a great comfort. I think if you talk to the clergy privately, they would probably tell you they see me pop up on Friday nights, usually alone. I'm also very resilient. I always talk about my mom. It's one thing that I've taken from her. We had very different personalities, but we got along beautifully. And I think she had this quiet resilience around her and about her. And I often feel her presence. She's always, you know how they have like the angel and the devil on your shoulder? There's no devil and there's no angel, but I do feel her sort of behind me saying, I'm right here. I'm right here. And I think in times I've tried to access that, I couldn't. It's in the times that you're not asking for it that it shows up for you.
You know, what comforts me is I sit in my den and I watch the television. I have a bookcase and I have at least 25 pictures of Gary. That's what keeps me going. My memory, I said, you know what? God could take away my husband, but certainly can't take away my memories.
No.
Every night, I look up in the sky and I say goodnight, I love you, and I miss you. Yeah. It's hard. It is really hard. But like I say, knowing him since he was 16 years old, it's a long time. I think I'm proud of my family. What they became. I mean, my grandkids, my daughters, they're really, they really make me proud. It's, my heart just breaks when I think about them. I think just, what I was blessed. I was really blessed. I was blessed with a fabulous husband and a great family. What about you?
I don't know if this is something I'm proud of, but something that I'm working toward being proud of is raising 3 boys to be good men in this world. I take that really seriously. I think about it a lot. And I'll have to let you know in 20 years if I succeeded and if I can be proud of that. But so far at this point, they're good kids and they're good humans, and that matters a lot to me.
Absolutely.